I need to know everything, who and the what and the where, I need everything. Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but act like it's new what you're telling me. I'm curious, George, I hop in the Porsche, it's 5 and a horse, I'm ready for war, I'm coming for throats, to turn to a ghost, I need to know everything. Now you be surprised at the info you get is by letting them talk, so I'm letting them talk.
And we're back for another episode of another Damn Fantasy Podcast. Dan and Trevor here, man. Week 1, a stinker a little bit, kind of bland.
Dude, those first couple of games, I'm like, where's the offense at? Come on.
Thank God for the late afternoon slate of games.
That's right.
Because that definitely turned. And then Sunday Night Football, I'm like, okay, we're going to get some Cowboys and some Giants action. Like, those are usually good divisional games. No, just a blowout.
No offense.
Just so bad. I mean,
no offense outside of Pollard, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it just seemed like it was kind of sloppy all around, like we were still in the preseason or something.
Yeah, it did seem a little bit weird. And I mean, it could be a little bit of the fact that, hell, the only time these guys really played was preseason week 2, right? And that was, by the time you throw Labor Day weekend in there, that was 3 weeks ago. I don't know if that has a lot to do with it, but it kind of feels that way. Just a little bit anyways, because they're not really getting a lot of live action in the preseason these days. And with the extra week, it just seems like a long time ago anyways. And so maybe we saw that a little bit this week of just everybody kind of feeling themselves out. And
right,
if you played the under all over the place, you are feeling really good this week.
Feeling good. I had a little parlay myself. Drove over to the Kansas side, placed a little $10 4-leg parlay, hit it for 130. That felt pretty good.
Hell yeah. Come on over to the right side.
We just need to get that going over here in the Mo.
Yeah, that's very, very true. It would give me something to do while I was at work during my day job, right? Because nothing is more annoying than pulling up my phone to get on the app to look something up, and it's like, what's your location? I'm like,
location.
Right. Come on now.
At least we got daily fantasy. We can at least set those lineups up.
That's right. Absolutely. All day long. We'll talk a little daily fantasy today. Plenty of news, obviously, to get into. Some heartbreaking injuries out there to guys, fantasy wise, we really expected a lot from this year. It has implication on other guys on these teams as well. Most of these, you already know. We're not breaking any news around here, but we do want to give a little bit of insight from our perspective on some of these other guys. Thinking about the Garrett Wilsons of the world and the Breece Halls, and how does Aaron Rodgers, losing him, how does that affect them and your expectations for them? And do our start sits as we always do. Wasn't too bad in our sits last week, Dan. I'm excited to get those out again today. And as always, if you're in here with the chat, hit the like button, throw in your start sit questions if you have them. After we get through the news, we will answer all start sits that are in the chat. We will answer them, and some of it might be rapid fire. Some of them we might give a good insight on, but if you put it in the chat tonight, we will answer it for you.
Absolutely. And yeah, just to touch on the injury thing a little bit, I know we kind of talked, obviously just a moment ago about the shortening of the preseason. They're not really playing as much as they used to. A lot of what we used to experience when there was 4 preseason games was injuries like this. Right, there would be a key player that would get hurt in a preseason game, and then their season shot. We didn't really see that this year, right? And so it makes sense that it's coming in the first game. Probably next week we'll see it a little bit as well, where these guys are gearing up a little bit, running a little bit harder, playing a little bit harder, putting their body through a little bit more trauma, and that ultimately is what's causing this injury, that ramp up to getting into NFL shape, right? Unfortunately, we'll start with Aaron Rodgers, the Achilles tear. Everyone saw it on Monday Night Football. 4 plays into the game, his left Achilles, I want to say it was, just popped. Very, very much a visible situation on the replays. You got everyone zooming in on it and analyzing it on social media and whatnot. But that's heartbreaking for Jets fans. And a little story that came out on Twitter that I saw was a quote from Aaron Rodgers, I guess, as he was in you. The way I envision it is kind of like a movie scene. You know what I mean? He's like out on the cart rolling out, and he looks over at Garrett Wilson and just says, "Sorry, kid." And that's kind of it. And that was the quote that Garrett Wilson came out and said. That was all he could say. And there's nothing you can do in those situations, but it's just like gut wrenching because those guys were so hyped up to play for him, play with him, share that field with him. And I mean, on Hard Knocks, it almost appeared like he had a little bit of a renewed life in that locker room too.
Yeah, he was like ready to go this year. I really felt that. I was pretty skeptical just about how good they were going to be, just because I didn't know if Aaron Rodgers still had it. Obviously we didn't see a great Aaron Rodgers at the end of last year, but man, whether you're rooting for him, whether you thought he wasn't going to be, great anymore, it doesn't matter what side of the line you're on. This is just absolutely like heartbreaking. It sucks. Like, you don't want to see it. It's part of the game. We all understand that, but not something we wanted to see at all. It does suck for Garrett Wilson. I mean, this is a guy that we were drafting in the first round, expecting him to have like potential top 3 wide receiver upside for fantasy football this year. I don't see that now, especially with Zach Wilson at quarterback. Now, I don't know. Do you think the Packers will make a move and go get somebody? Doesn't sound like they're going to, but there's a guy in Dallas that I kind of like. I wouldn't mind seeing him in a Jets uniform.
Yeah, I think the odds of them going out and getting anyone, I mean, if they did, it would be a free agent situation. In my opinion, I think that's the way they would go. I would be really shocked to see the guy who you're alluding to, Trey Lance, right?
Oh, yeah.
I would be really shocked to see Dallas trade him away after they just went out and acquired him. But you never know, man. You get the right offer going, maybe something happens. He would be interesting in that offense, especially with Nathaniel Hackett having like that background of with Aaron Rodgers, a little bit more of a mobile quarterback there too. At least early in his career, he was. So that'd be really interesting. But I think it's Zach Wilson's team right now. I mean, Saleh said it too. So I don't know. I just don't. Definitely disappointing. This is like so selfish, obviously. But Garrett Wilson was my keeper in one of my leagues. So definitely a disappointing situation from that perspective. But there's so much more weight here, and you definitely feel for Aaron Rodgers and all of his teammates in New York and the Jets fans who are expecting something great this year.
Yeah, 100%. Now, they still have a great defense. They still won the football game. Brees Hall looked great. Dalvin Cook looked salvageable. Garrett Wilson with a just absolutely incredible catch because as Keebler puts in the chat, Zach Wilson couldn't hit a parked car with the football. And Garrett Wilson literally had to like pull a freaking Houdini just to catch the ball, which was
true.
Absolutely incredible. But yeah, definitely a kind of a crappy situation. But we have a lot of football coming up this week and some other injury news that is not as devastating. I mean, I guess we could just touch on the J.K. Dobbins because it's in the similar situation. Achilles tear. He looked great. Like, he was running with passion. The guy looked I felt like he was going to really ramp it up this year after seeing him a couple of times and played him a couple of DFS this week against Houston. Euro felt good. Ends up tearing his Achilles as well, and Justice Hill comes back and scores 2 touchdowns in that one. I don't know how you feel. Did you put any waivers out for a guy like Justice Hill, Gus Edwards? Where are you kind of landing with this Ravens running back, or are you just kind of wait and see mode?
Yeah, I'm in wait and see mode. I don't think they're going to trade for anybody in this particular situation, right? They do have 2 backs. Like Gus Edwards is a guy that they've turned to before to be the bell cow back there when Dobbins was hurt previously. Justice Hill is another younger guy that they've kept on the roster for quite some time. So this could finally be his opportunity. I think if anything, they're going to sign somebody, and I'm really looking at like Kareem Hunt or Leonard Fournette as that guy. I did not put anything out for the two guys they have on the roster, but I picked up Kareem Hunt in case that does happen, or when that eventually does happen. I think he'll be a really solid pickup. It would be interesting to see the Ravens trade for Jonathan Taylor, to tell you the truth.
I had that thought like for a split second the other day, but
Yeah.
you like that idea?
I I mean, it would be interesting. I'll put it that way. I'm not big on giving up assets for running backs necessarily if it's my team. Um, but the Ravens have pulled a lot of trades off recently. They've acquired mostly defensive guys in those trade situations. You know, Roquan Smith. They pulled in Marcus Peters at one point. Um, but to see them make a trade for a running back would not surprise me with their, with their scheme and everything. And
Yeah.
Jonathan Taylor can catch passes too, and he's a damn hard runner. I mean, he would kind of fit that Baltimore style.
Yeah, I think he would fit right in with the team. They got a great Zay Flowers looked awesome. You're going to
Man.
get Mark Andrews back, so this offense could be humming for sure. As Keebler put it, he says Dobbins was the only bright spot. I think Zay Flowers looked really good as well. But, I mean, he's a rookie in his first game. So, yes, Dobbins was the offense going there. Odell Beckham didn't do anything. Rashad Bateman didn't do anything. We were talking pre-show about one of your sits last week was the Ravens wide receivers, which you were spot on with. Some of these guys were just not good, as Keebler puts out here. And, I mean, Justice Hill, it feels like he's going to be the starter this week with Gus
Right.
Edwards in the mix. I don't think I'm really interested in just going out and automatically starting these guys. So they play the Bengals this week, I think. So just a nice, hard divisional game there. And Cincinnati's probably going to come back trying to fire back off after that goose egg they put up last week. But
No kidding.
yeah, we'll see how it goes. In Baltimore, just something you definitely want to keep your eye out on and kind of follow along as you go. What about Austin Eckler?
Well, Austin Eckler has a little bit of an ankle injury, which kind of surprised me. I didn't notice anything during the game, but then there were some reports that he was missing some practices and that sort of thing. So I don't think it's going to put him in jeopardy of playing on Sunday necessarily, but it's absolutely something to monitor. He had the best performance by a running back in PPR formats. Um, the dude balled out, simply put. I mean,
Yeah.
we both knew that game, even Vegas knew, the public knew, everyone knew
Yep.
that game was going to be a shootout, big time points game. And it was probably my favorite game to watch of the week outside of that. The last probably 8 minutes of the Jets and Bills game, that was by far the best game of the week. So something to watch for Austin Eckler for sure going into the weekend. And then another one, Raheem Mostert, speaking of the Dolphins, he missed practice today, but they were kind of downplaying his absence, calling it more of a maintenance thing. We've seen it with running backs in the Shanahan, McDaniel type of offense, right? They get a lot of play, they get a lot of reps, but they also get hurt pretty frequently. And so I think he's trying to curb that a little bit, especially since Jeff Wilson's already on the IR. Von A-Chain's still nursing that shoulder. We don't know what his status is going to be for this Sunday. He was a surprise inactive. At least it was a shock to me on Sunday. So those are all situations to kind of watch as we head to the weekend. Other than J.K. Dobbins, though, I mean, most of these running backs came out fairly healthy. I know Aaron Jones had a little tweak during the game, but nothing really coming out about that right now. Or I guess there is something here. My apologies. What we got on that?
On which one? Aaron Jones?
Aaron Jones.
Oh, just that I just pulled up a tweet by Rob Demovsky. I never get it right. I pull up a lot of his tweets, so I feel like. And it was just him not making it on the practice this week. But I also wanted to pull it up because it also states that Christian Watson had a helmet during stretching, but he worked off on the side doing some rehab stuff. So I would like to see Christian Watson back out there soon.
Same.
No sign of Aaron Jones is a little bothersome. It's always difficult because our shows are on Wednesday nights. Wednesdays are not necessarily the practice to be scared of. It's the Thursday and the Friday practices. So we're kind of giving you heads up, right? Like you need to check the practice reports for tomorrow and for Friday, especially. Because as you know, it's kind of like Kelsey, right? Kelsey last week doesn't practice on Wednesday or Tuesday. And that's the big one, right? It's like that last practice right before the game. And that's what Friday practices are. So just keep an eye out for Aaron Jones for sure. And we'll see what happens with him. If not, I mean, cue up AJ Dillon, baby.
Oh yeah. He's going to get plenty of play this weekend if Aaron Jones misses that time for sure.
Let's get into a couple wide receivers, a little bit of injury news here. If you're in the chat, I mean, you guys are killing it. We love to see it. We will definitely be getting to some of this stuff. We're just kind of getting through this news here. If you've got some start sit questions, throw those in there. We're going to get to them after we talk some wide receiver and tight end news.
Bring it out.
I'll get us started with Deontay Johnson out at least 4 weeks. I would expect him to hit the IR by Sunday. In this situation, just absolutely brutal. I saw it. It was on my screen when he went down. I instantly tweeted, "Oh no, please no," something to that effect. Deontay Johnson. I was pretty high on Deontay Johnson this year. I've actually always been high on Deontay Johnson.
I love
he had
that
a
guy.
brutal season last year. Really, no touchdowns. He should have had like 6 or 7. Just doesn't get any touchdowns. Was really looking forward. And the problem here is we've talked about it before, is the hamstring. Like, even when he comes back in 4 to 6 weeks, he is at such high risk to retweak this thing. If for a redraft league, this feels gross. I'm not necessarily dropping him quite yet. If I have an IR spot, I'm obviously going to use that. If I don't have an IR spot, it's going to be hard to hold him for the next 4 to 6 weeks, I feel like.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you there. This is one of those things where, does the reward even outweigh the risk on it, holding him on your roster? If you get another injury, I think it's pretty clear you have to make that decision to kind of let him hit waivers or see if you can get something, a cheap trade deal in for him. Obviously in Dynasty, you're going to hold on to him a little bit longer, but for these redraft situations, totally different ball game. I know you have here, Calvin Austin as a viable option to sort of pick up the slack. George Pickens obviously was drafted in most leagues, but I mean, Calvin Austin, Allen Robinson, both of those guys are available. They both had over 5 catches. Allen Robinson 64 yards is probably the best game he's had since 2019.
Yeah, and he led the team in targets.
Very interesting. I actually did pick up Allen Robinson in a 14-man league.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. I kind of liked Calvin Austin. I felt like most of his targets came after Deontay Johnson getting hurt, so that made it feel like, okay, he's the next man up with Calvin Austin, but probably not necessarily, I don't think 14-team league makes a little bit more sense, a little deeper. I'm probably not, begging for these guys to be on my team. I wouldn't have spent a lot of fab or anything on them this week.
Right.
But definitely just guys to keep on your radar, see how it goes. But yeah, to get that many targets against the San Francisco team that absolutely dominated this game. We'll see how those go. George Pickens, though, I think it honestly probably opens up for him to have a potentially monstrous year if Kenny Pickett can be right.
Yeah, that's one of those things you just got to worry about. I think Pickens was even seen liking some tweets about whether or not any quarterbacks can get the ball to him kind of thing. And you never want to see that. But yeah, I mean, that's just the situation there. Hopefully Pickett can bounce out of bounce out of the funk from that last game and not have a sophomore slump the entire year.
Yeah, San Francisco is just really good. I mean,
they're really good.
I'm not worried about Pittsburgh from that game. Now, you go out and lay an egg this week, I might start the panic button. Jacoby Myers. Jacoby Myers, hell of a game. Like, welcome to Las Vegas, Jacoby Myers. Unfortunately, though, he is in the concussion protocol. So I don't really think there's a lot to do here. Just kind of it's concussion. Just be aware. If he's playing, I think he's starting to get flex considerations because he looked pretty good this week. I think.
Oh yeah. Well, he's got that familiarity with Josh McDaniels too. He knows that offense really well. So and he knows Garoppolo. I mean, all that makes sense.
Mark Andrews was held out last week. Monitor that. Isaiah Likely didn't do damn thing in his
pissed me absence.
Off. Yeah, I played him in DFS. I'm like, sweet, got a free square. Don't talk about it at all on Friday. Get there Sunday morning. I'm like, free square, hitting Likely, like 1 catch, 9 yards, something like that. Like, now you don't lose anything because tight ends were just absolutely bad this week, but still, it kind of just sucked that Likely didn't do anything. And then Greg Dulcich, my sit of the week last week for tight end, because I said I want to see it before I believe in it. Well, we're not going to see it for a while. Hamstring injury. Out for a couple weeks.
I can see him hitting IRs here pretty soon as well with his situation. They said multiple weeks, so that's never a good sign. I mean, they'll fully evaluate. It's probably going to be closer, like 46 weeks, typical hamstring, probably going to be closer to that 6-week range where we see him hit IR for a second straight season.
Absolutely.
So, the ADP league, man.
Let's do it. Real quick for everybody's in the chat tonight. Let's talk about it just real quick. We already got people. Are you going to update us on the ADP league, right?
Tyler, of course he wants the ADP league.
He has the week, the top week of the top team of the week. It's a league that we did. We drafted a couple weeks ago on stream. So we just want to recap quickly. We won't spend a lot of time on it. Nobody really wants to hear all about our fantasy successes, but we want to kind of quickly talk about it. I'll bring it up just to share the screen. Hopefully everybody in it doesn't mind because it's all been shared before anyways. So I pull up the leaderboard here. I got a win against Nate this week. So you can follow him at LaterusNB on Twitter and tell him how bad he stinks because I beat him. Dan, not quite this week. Takes the L. Tyler takes the team of the week, 156.14. Gets the Austin Eckler, huge game from him. And then just kind of a lot of that 40.
Well, there it is.
40 burger from the defense.
Yeah.
No wonder you had the top 10 team of the week, man. Did play Kadarius Toney though, so not a hot start, but he ends up pretty good.
What a cherry on top of that Sunday.
Finish it off with a 40 burger. I just want to mention real fast. I got Tyreek Hill. He kind of leads me to the victory this week. 44.5 points in this league.
It's the wide receiver under him that I'm most interested in.
Look, when you get a start a draft with Tyreek Hill and T. Higgins, like I think if I remember right, I went Hill, Pollard, Higgins, Hill 44.5, Pollard 22. So I get 66 points out of my top 3 picks.
That's about what you want to average, I would think.
Yeah, you're not going to be mad about 66 points from your top 3 picks, right?
Not at all.
We don't need to talk about the 0 that T. Higgins puts up.
Even 44.5 between your top 2 receivers. I mean, you're in good shape right there.
So the top picks came through this week outside of T. Higgins. I am not worried about T. Higgins at all. I'm not worried about this Bengals offense. They obviously they laid an egg this week. It wasn't great, but I'm not worried about them. I don't know if you think any differently, but I'm not worried about the Bengals whatsoever. We'll pull up your matchup. Anything you want to say here?
Yeah, man. This one ended up being a lot closer than I thought because Josh Allen just kept giving the ball away. That's really what kept it so close. Other than that, man, obviously the Bengals offense didn't do well. I started Isaiah Likely because Mark Andrews ended up not making the show. AJ Dillon started the game with like negative 15 rushing yards or something like that. He just couldn't make it out. Will Lutz missed a bunch of kicks. Not really anything on my bench that could have changed the outcome of this game outside of maybe.
I always like to go there. Like, what did I miss? Like, I left Ayuk on the bench. Still got
Right.
the win, but I was going to be so mad if I lose with Ayuk on the bench.
Well, I mean, the only thing I could have done differently is maybe pick up a different tight end instead of grabbing Isaiah Likely Sunday morning. But I don't know how much I don't know if there was a tight end that was available that would have gotten me 9 more points.
I think that I think the top tight end was like Hayden Hurst, and he had like 11 points. So not necessarily a guy you're looking to just salivate over and start, right? It's just
Yep, absolutely.
Isaiah Likely seemed to make sense. He was the plug and play for Mark Andrews.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take it. The only thing that could have changed my fortune is if I had started the Dallas Cowboys defense like our friend Tyler did.
That's right. That's the only reason he came into the chat today, was just to see us talk about the Cowboys and their 44 points.
He said, "Let me get this in real quick, and then I'll bounce out of here. I just want to make sure I get my shout out, my bragging rights in."
As long as you hit the like button on your way out, that's what we really care about, right? Hey, Keeb, dude, I think we've got Keeb where I think he's going to start up a betting podcast. So
let's go.
Keep your eye out on Bite Size Sports. Potentially, hopefully, we get this thing rocking and rolling. We've been really looking for somebody to run a betting podcast for us. And Keebler seems to be interested going Falcons money line this week. So giving us a little taste already. I don't mind that, looking at Falcons money line this week. Who are they facing? Actually, I
think they've got
all this research I do, and I can't remember all the matchups.
For some reason, I'm just thinking Carolina. I think it's Green Bay, isn't it?
Oh, it is Green Bay. That's right.
Yeah.
You're right. It is Green Bay. Should be a fun game there. Bounce back for sure for Kadarius.
I like
it. I miss it.
Not starting him.
I miss it.
Yeah, dude.
Come
me
on
too.
Home, Tyreek.
Oh my God, my brother-in-law and I were texting all day Sunday, just like, man, I miss that. I miss that number 10 in our offense, dude. He just is such a game changer. I mean, you're always in line for a bomb touchdown.
Yeah, so good. The boys carried me. That's right. Let's jump into some start sits here. We got a couple start sits that we will answer. If you got any, throw them in the chat right now. We did get one from our Discord. If you haven't already, just scroll down on YouTube, go into the description. If you're on Facebook, hit the description. Link is in the description. Join our Discord. We were in there a lot on Sunday, just talking ball, talking NFL, fantasy stuff, just, storylines in general. Sundays are great for it. But Dan and we're in and out all the time. If you got questions throughout the week for fantasy football, we will be there to answer your questions. So jump in our Discord if you will. You'll have a great time in there with all of us. But the question that came from our Discord was Puka. So the new hotness on the block, right, Dan? He is the guy that everybody's talking about. Puka, Zay Flowers, Cortland Sutton. It's a half-point PPR. If you had to start one of these guys, which one would it be this week?
Oh man, that's tough. I mean, if I'm starting one of these guys, it's likely for a flex position is kind of what I'm looking at.
Yeah, he said he had two other wide receivers.
Okay.
But they were like starters, absolute starters.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I mean, that one's real difficult. I mean, the Broncos, I know Sutton caught a touchdown, but he didn't really do much outside of that. I'm liking the upside for Flowers this weekend. But Puka, man, he was all over the place. Matt Stafford was really loving him, targeting him a ton. I think for both of those guys, it's tough for me to say which one really sticks out because I'm definitely a consistency before plugging them into my lineup kind of guy. But if these are your only options, I think Flowers looked more explosive and maybe has a higher ceiling. And for the flex, that's where I'm going with it probably.
Yeah, Puka facing off against San Francisco this week, going to be a different ball game than against Seattle last week. 15 targets, 10 catches, something like that. Absolutely dominated the rookie in LA.
Yeah.
which was pretty awesome. It kind of seems like he's taking on that Cooper Kupp role a little bit, but not out of the slot. Like he was on the outside the whole time. So,
Yeah, he
anyways, yeah, I
was
love
lining
what
up
I saw
that deck.
from Puka. It's
Yeah.
hard not to. Tutu Atwell there in the Los Angeles also had a great game. I'm going Zay Flowers in this as well, though. Not Cortland Sutton against Washington. No way do I want to trust this Denver offense that just put up 16 points against the Las Vegas Raiders. Now they get a Washington who has one of the best fronts in the game. I don't know if that cat's playing this week. Chase Young, I don't know if he's playing this week or not, but either way, Washington's front four, front eight is just really dominant. So
Yeah.
don't want to play that. I'll take Zay Flowers against Cincinnati Bengals in a game that I think both these offenses are trying to get right here. They're trying to get right. Some quarterbacks that are a little bit lower down, right? A little lower down on your rankings list. Jordan Love against the aforementioned Falcons, or Derek Carr this week. Derek Carr kind of looked like trash against Tennessee last week, but that game in general was just gross.
They're taking on Carolina this week, which, Falcons put up some solid points against them. I'm probably going Derek Carr here. He had a really good connection with Michael Thomas, surprisingly. He got Shaheed involved quite a bit.
Yeah,
and then, of course, Chris Olave had himself a game, too, over 100 yards. I think, 8 catches, something like that. So he was spreading the ball around a lot, and all three of those guys had pretty productive games. I think they just couldn't score. They just couldn't get touchdowns.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
too many turnovers in the green zones there.
Yeah.
In the red zone.
Exactly. So
I'm going Jordan Love, but I'll talk a little bit more about it later. He is actually my start of the week, so we'll talk that a little bit later on. Start sit Gibbs or Jamal Williams. Man, I think Gibbs looked great. I feel like a lot of people were like, "Nah, dude, Gibbs wasn't good." He literally tripped over his own feet because he had such a great move, and he would have scored if he doesn't trip over his own feet there. I think, it's just stuff like Gibbs would get like a nice run, and then Montgomery would come in for like 2 or 3 2-yard runs at a time. And so it's just kind of the Detroit system. But no, man, you have so much. Gibbs has so much upside. One play. We saw from Breece Hall Monday night, right? Like one play, Breece Hall goes like 83 yards. It doesn't score a touchdown. But Christian McCaffrey, one play, goes off for a long touchdown. Like Jahmyr Gibbs has that type of skill set, and so I'm taking Gibbs in that one.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I like Gibbs a little bit better. I think he has more upside. Now, Jamal Williams going up against the Carolina defense, obviously a little bit of an easier task, I think, than going up against the front seven of the Tennessee Titans. But yeah, I mean, I'm going Gibbs here for sure. I'll be starting Gibbs this week over Javonte Williams. So
yeah. Gibbs is going to be top 15, something like that. We got a lot of homers in the chat, y'all. If you're not here, if you're listening to the audio afterwards, we appreciate that. But don't be scared to come over into the chat on a Wednesday night. A lot of homers. Tyler wants to know if we're worried about Dak and the Dallas offense. I'm not. Dude, the defense was just so dominant last week.
Blew him out.
Like,
there was no need for him to do anything.
Last year? It was like the same thing. When the defense scores 2 touchdowns, you don't worry about Dak.
Oh, yeah.
Keebler's got the Commanders because Sam Howell looked good. Nate thinks that DJ Moore's going off this week. He's a Bears homer. You know what I mean.
Optimistic, Nate. Pretty optimistic.
5 touchdowns, 346 yards. Keebler, we'll see you later. Thanks for being here, my friend. Okay,
Appreciate
but
you,
honestly,
man.
Here, last start sit question. We'll get to our start sits. Lee in the chat says George Pickens or Jahan Dotson. It's a flex play. I'm just going to guess it's a PPR play just because that's what we usually talk much anyways. George Pickens, now that Deontay Johnson's out, or Jahan Dotson for the Washington Commanders against Denver. We just talked about that. I was like, I know we just said that.
Yeah.
Who's Pittsburgh playing this week?
Pittsburgh plays Cleveland this week on the Monday night doubleheader.
Oh, God. Oh, I love the doubleheaders, though, for DFS.
So awesome. So awesome. I know where I'm going. I'm going Pickens here. I think there's just so much more opportunity for him now that Deontay Johnson's not going to be in the lineup. Cleveland's defense looked good. Okay, don't get me wrong. They really put it on Joe Burrow, but I think a lot of that had to do with some of the climate that they were playing in as well. If you
That's
remember, it was
true.
real weather. There was a lot of weather, a lot of rain. The field was a little sloppy, and I know the Bengals were playing in that weather as well, right?
They
So I
sucked.
can't just fully put it on the weather, but that's a factor that's most likely not going to be in play. And I know the Steelers looked really bad, but they played probably a top 3 defense in the NFL compared to what the Cleveland Browns are putting out there. Obviously, Nick Bosa and Myles Garrett, they're very comparable players, but the cast around Nick Bosa is so much better than the cast around Myles Garrett. I'm not worried about that carrying over, and I really like Pickens over Dotson this week with McLaurin in play too. It just changes things a little bit.
Well, I was kind of a toss-up, so I am taking your side and going Pickens in because I feel like you sold me there. Because I wasn't really sure where I wanted to go. Browns have Burrow's number. Burrow's
Yeah,
been
they
bad
do.
the last couple years early. I'm not worried about him.
He's never won in Cleveland, and Zach Taylor is
Really?
0-4, 0-5 against Cleveland in Cleveland, something like that. Or he's like 1-5 like career. It's really bad. He does not they do not have a good record against the Browns the last 4 years. But yeah, Joe Burrow never won in Cleveland. I can't take credit for that. That goes to Bengals fan in the office, Ethan Wagner. He gave me all those
There
stats.
you go. Give me a little insight. Hey, use this on
Yeah.
the podcast tonight, dude. Use this on the pod. Hey, Herbert's in the chat just trolling us as Chiefs fan. May I remind you, Justin Herbert, is it 7? I should have looked up the stat for 7 division wins titles in a row. The Chiefs are rolling on
You just
5
lose
AFC
count.
championships
It
in a
happens every
row
year. You just
at
lose count.
Arrowhead. Like, troll us all you want, but the Chargers and the Chiefs have the exact same record after week 1. Waddle or Pittman, you can't go wrong, man. I don't know. Like that's the one that we kind of talked about last time.
Who are your other 2 receivers if that's your flex?
Yeah, I know.
I
That's
mean,
what I'm thinking.
golly.
But I do think in a vacuum, if I'm going up against both those guys, I will take Pittman, and I will talk a little bit more about why later on when we get to our sits, because I have a sit just for you. He was pretty darn good this week, or last week.
Let's do the starts, man.
Let's do it. Starts and sits of the week brought to you by insert ad later.
Yeah.
I think we could
insert
get some
brought to you by we're working on it.
It could be you.
Yeah.
Oh man. I love it. Last week, real quick, starts didn't go too well. You went 1-3. I went 2-2. We weren't, phenomenal in week 1, but we did absolutely kill it in our sits, going 3-1. I went 4-0. So really we're just looking at, we're kind of to track this a little bit. What guys ended up as starting style, players, quarterbacks, tight ends, top 12, running backs, wide receivers. Did they get in the top 24, something around in there? So we'll just kind of track it for fun over the course of the season, see how well we do, and kind of, make it a little competition between ourselves.
Yeah.
See who's got the better starts and sits. Dan, why don't we kick it off with quarterback this week? I love yours.
Yeah, I know you do. I'm taking your guy this week. You took Jared Goff for me, keeping me from running him back a second week. I just gave yours away, man. I'm so sorry.
All right.
No, Anthony Richardson, that's who I'm rolling with this week. Your boy in Indianapolis. He looked good, man. He looked good in his first game, his first NFL action against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think they have a little bit of a tougher defense than what Houston's putting out on the field. Now, I know Houston kept Lamar Jackson subdued a little bit, but I just don't see that happening this week. Michael Pittman looked really good. They looked like they had a nice, solid connection. I like Anthony Richardson to start if I'm looking at QBs that aren't named, insert top 7.
Yep.
Anthony Richardson's going to be my guy this week. And wait, I forgot. Who did you pick for yours?
Yeah, that's right. Jared Goff going at it. I think you make a good point just real fast. Like, obviously you're going to start all your studs. We're looking at these guys that are borderline. Could you start them? Should you look for somebody else? Like for me, I'm starting Jared Goff over like a Daniel Jones, who I don't think looked great last week. Probably starting over Kirk Cousins, who plays on Thursday night tomorrow night. Those kind of guys. So it's all these guys that we'll probably talk about the same guys quite often over the course of the season. But that's because these guys aren't the studs. We're not going to talk about Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts. Like, obviously, You're starting those guys.
Now, in the sits column, you might see a few more of those top guys where we're like, don't love this matchup. Look into one of these other options that we talked about in the start side of things.
Start side, a stream side. We'll talk about streaming quarterbacks here in a little bit too. So, absolutely, yeah. I think you'll be a little bit surprised with my sits this week. Jared Goff against Seattle, who just gave up over 300 yards to a Cooper Cup-less Los Angeles Rams team last week. They look right. They look like they're right at the same place they were last year. Just absolutely terrible in the back end of this defense. Like, it's just not good. It wasn't good last year. Jared Goff over 250 yards passing last week in Arrowhead. I expect him to be a little bit more efficient this week than he was last week against a weaker defense, which is kind of just nice to be able to say as a Chiefs fan. The Chiefs defense looked really good last week.
Yeah, we did.
So Goff getting an easier defense this week and playing in the comfort of his own home dome. Give me a little bit of Jared Goff this week if you're right on the edge there trying to find a good starting quarterback. I'll let that roll right into running back for me this week. This one comes with a little bit of an asterisk. It feels absolutely nasty, gross, dirty. But if Zach Moss is active for the Indianapolis Colts, I think you fire him up. If you're looking for a flex option, looking for an RB2, maybe you just lost J.K. Dobbins and you don't really have any other options. You didn't get Justice Hill, whatever. Zach Moss against the Houston Texans. Deion Jackson looked bad last week. Evan Hull is now on the IR. Those were the two guys that were kind of supposed to be the running backs there in Indianapolis. I think this is Zach Moss's backfield when he's healthy. And let's not forget, this is the same Houston team that was absolutely abysmal against the run last year, giving up 170 yards per game last year. Week 1 this year, where do they start off? 3 rushing touchdowns. Like, it's just they're not good against the run. And if Zach Moss is active and healthy, I'll take him as my start of the week.
I like that. I like that play. If he's healthy, of course, that's a big piece of it. So there's that caveat. For me, I'm going with James Cook, the Las Vegas Raiders.
Everyone is trolling in the chat. Sorry. A. Richardson or Jalen Hurts. Devontae Smith, Stephon Diggs. Come on, guys. Sorry. You play your studs. Come on.
Play the studs. Jalen Hurts.
Jalen Hurts every time.
But I'm going James Cook this week for my running back start of the week. Going against Las Vegas. I mean, their defense just has not looked good in a long time. And Buffalo's due for a little bounce back after last week. I think they rely a little bit more on the run. That was one of the most productive parts of their offense, was throwing to the running backs out of the backfield, letting them get started up. We saw Latavius Murray, Damian Harris. They were able to get some action too, even until Josh Allen had to be Superman towards the back end of the game and march him down the field. I could just see them blowing out the Raiders and giving James Cook a lot of opportunities later in the game too. So that's where I'm leaning for my running back this week.
Good little get right spot for the Buffalo Bills here. Oh, my bad, Tyler. I read it as you were asking Diggs or Devontae Smith. I see what you're saying here. We asked him who his wide receivers were. I didn't catch all that. So sorry about that, Tyler.
I'm definitely starting those two over Waddle and
yes, for sure. And I would still probably take Pittman over Waddle. Nice little foursome you got there of wide receivers. Can't be mad about that. Before we go to wide receivers here, Dan, did you see the Las Vegas Denver game last week? Did you watch that game at all?
I did, unfortunately.
This is what I truly texted my group of friends. Josh Jacobs looks like the new Fat Lenny. Like, he looked slow to me. He looked fat to me.
Well, he held
He
out.
and he must have. I mean, aren't they supposed to be working out? I don't. I'm not trying to be like hot and takey with this. Like, I just like truly was like, what happened? Where was the RB1 of last year that had 390 some odd touches and just absolutely destroyed everyone? He just looked slow and he looked overweight.
Yeah, he's got some conditioning that he's probably got to do a little bit more. Ended up as the 27th best running back. It's not really where you want to be. Um, he Fat Lenny. It's definitely like a little Eddie Lacy energy going on over there for sure.
Yeah, that's
Um,
right.
Unfortunately, yeah, he just, he held out all training camp, signs that contract days before the season starts, and then now they're getting him into action. So I just don't think he's in shape yet. That's something that I think will change as the season progresses. At least you hope if you drafted
Yeah.
him, stayed away from him. And
Makes
all
me kind of feel good about Zamir White. I kind of want to see him run a little bit more. Lee said he watched the whole game and was fully disappointed. The game itself was just boring.
It was brutal. I thought I was gonna start clawing my eyes out.
Absolutely brutal. Let's get on to wide receiver here. We both go with rookies at the wide receiver spot. I didn't realize that until just now. I'll let you start with your rookie.
Yeah, I'm going with Jordan Addison. He looked really good. He got a lot of targets. He caught that long ball, long touchdown in that game against the Buccaneers. I think all of that means that he's going to be heavily involved in this offense. Like, he's the clear cut number 2. He surpassed KJ Osborne. I mean, Kirk Cousins is going to be looking his way often. Now, the good news about that is that did not impact Justin Jefferson's game at all. If anything, it's probably enhancing it a little bit because they're going to be respecting Jordan Addison on the other side of things. Another big reason I'm keeping him in is because they're going to be missing James Bradbury this weekend. James Bradbury's been ruled out of that game. Pretty much just Darius Slay out there on the in for the corners. So gotta roll with Jordan Addison in this one.
Yeah, Eagles defense that just gave up QB2 to Mac Jones. Something like that. Like, whoa, it's Mac
Yeah.
Jones, y'all. What the heck? So yeah, I'm
What are we doing
excited
here,
for tomorrow
Eagles?
night's game. I think it'll be a decent game. It's in Minnesota, if I believe. Is it in Minnesota? Oh, it's in Philly.
It's
I
in
was thinking it was
Philly,
in
yeah.
the dome, but it's still good enough weather. Hopefully, we don't get too much rain or anything up there tomorrow night. And looking forward to that game. I'm going the rookie route as well. I'm going Jackson Smith and Jigba against the Detroit Lions. Seattle's offense stifled last week against the Rams. I said sit Geno Smith. That works out pretty well for you. I'm not jumping ship from the Seattle offense just yet. JSN tied the team high in targets last week, 21% target share as a rookie in the very first game. That's pretty elite, honestly. I mean, if you can have a 20% target share just in general, you're doing pretty good. But as a rookie in game one, you like to see that quite a bit. Detroit's defense doesn't scare me at all. I mean, the Chiefs didn't move the ball, and it really wasn't because of this defense, as it's well documented at this point with all the drop skis they had. So, again, this game in the Dome, I could see this game potentially being the highest scoring game on the entire weekend. I think that Seattle's offense will try to keep up with this Detroit offense that they're not going to be able to stop at all. So, give me some JSN this weekend.
I don't mind that at all. I think JSN looked pretty good too, even with the wrist injury last weekend.
Yep.
So there's definitely a lot of upside there. What are you looking at for tight end?
We're just going to keep it rolling. So last week, I feel like I did this with the the Miami Los Angeles game, and it hit. And this week, I'm doing it with the Detroit Seattle game. We're also going to continue to roll on with the rookies. Once again, I just noticed that we both have rookie tight ends that we're going to start this week. The tight end position was trash last week, y'all. The top tight end was like 11 points. Please, for the love of God, Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, be healthy. Come
Come
back.
back.
See us so we can all have a reason to like the tight end position again.
The game needs you guys.
It was absolutely trash last week. But Sam Laporta of the Detroit Lions, really, again, this is the third start of the week from this game for me. You know which game I love the most this week for a fantasy perspective, scoring perspective, those kind of things. But also the reality is, like, Sam Laporta is probably sitting on your bench. Like, you're probably trying to figure out, do I start him? Do I not start him? He was involved last week. Doesn't get a huge stat line, but when he did catch the ball and run, he looked very athletic. I thought he looked pretty good. I think he's primed for a big year. And to, go up against the Seattle defense, I've already well documented this week, is pretty spicy. So
Love it. Love it. I mean, that's the other rookie tight end that I have on my fantasy squad. So I'm honestly a little bit torn on what I want to do here, but I think Dalton Kincaid gets the edge for me. So that's why I plugged him into my tight end start of the week. I really like the bounce back perspective of the Bills against this Raiders team. A lot of the rumors were that we were going to see sets with both Kincaid and Knox on the field, and that's exactly what we saw week 1 against the Jets. Both of them had plenty of targets, and Kincaid ended up with like 5 catches for almost 40 yards, which, I mean, for tight ends last week, that puts him pretty much near the top 10. If not in the top 10, I'm not looking at it right now, but that just bodes well for his production, because with a lot of these rookies, we talked about it a second ago, they tend to like take a while to ramp them up, get them up to game speed before they really involve them in the game plan. So, I mean, if he's already getting this kind of attention from Josh Allen after week 1, I really like the potential for him to continue to see that grow. So, and he looked good, man. He looked really good running his routes.
Yeah, I mean, Gabe Davis, Deontay Hardy, Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid all have 4 targets apiece. Like, to me, you could see that and think, oh, well, they're just spreading the ball around. I see it as, you got a rookie tight end coming in for his first game, and he's receiving the same amount of targets as Gabe Davis, who's been there for many years and had great games for Josh Allen and the Bills. And so he's absolutely earning that trust. And I think this is just going to slowly like weed out Dawson Knox. Not like he won't play, but I think his targets will go down, and Dalton Kincaid will kind of dominate as maybe like a number 2 pass catcher there.
Yeah.
In Buffalo. Dan, we got some great starts, but as starts come, also sits go. And we got to put some guys on the bench here. Where do you want to go? You want to start this one?
Yeah, I'll kick it off with the quarterback. I'm benching Matthew Stafford against this San Francisco 49ers defense. Obviously, he had a really productive week against the Seahawks. We just saw the Niners shut Kenny Pickett and the Steelers down. I could absolutely see that with the Rams. The Rams and Sean McVay tend to play pretty poorly against the Niners in the regular season, at least. So, yeah, I'm not looking for a big bunch of points from Matthew Stafford this week, and definitely not an option that I'm looking at as a potential fill-in for Aaron Rodgers this week.
Yeah, that 49ers defense is so good.
You're just stifling.
It's gonna, like, if the Niners and Cowboys make the NFC Championship game, as a football fan, it's going to be a lot of fun. But as a fantasy sports guy, I'm going to be so bored. I'm like, come on now. We need some freaking offense here. Lee, yes, tomorrow night is the first night. It's on Amazon Prime. I'm pretty sure it appears all the games after that until like you get into like Thanksgiving week is on Amazon Prime from here on out for Thursday nights. As Lee asks in the chat, not only fantasy football, we're also TV guys. We'll tell you where to find the games at. Dan, I'm going this route because I really, truly believe this. The number 1 quarterback in week 1, he looked phenomenal. I loved it. He It's Tua. I'm going Tua against the New England Patriots. You got to sit him. Look, 28 of 45 last week, 466 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, QB1. Helped me finish second out of 1,176 entries in a DFS tournament. I had him with Hill, Eckler on the bring back. It worked out phenomenally.
Let's go.
But now he has to face this New England Patriots defense. And this New England Patriots defense just held Jalen Hurts, the number 1 quarterback drafted, to QB 19 in week 1. They're a good defense, and you got a divisional game. I think it's going to, it's not going to be this high-flying affair like against the Chargers was last week. If I have an option to avoid starting Tua, I'm going to avoid starting Tua this week. I'm going to go ahead and put him on my bench. I talked about Jared Goff as the start. I would start Jared Goff over Tua this week. That Patriots defense looked good.
They are good. I mean, Belichick always coaches a tough, tight-knit, well-disciplined unit. He's really good at game planning against any team, any scheme, obviously. And I mean, I could definitely see him not keeping Tyreek Hill in check, but at least just making sure that they don't take the top off the defense,
Yeah, absolutely. And he's played Tyreek so many times.
Oh, yeah.
Even when he was in with the Chiefs and everything, he's got that down. And I really like this Miami offense. I think they're going to be a fantasy just gold mine this year. But I would definitely temper expectations this weekend, and I'm not afraid to sit Tua in week 2. I'll go running back and get off the corniness. I'm going Miles Sanders against the New Orleans Saints. You don't get it done against the Atlanta Falcons. I'm not going to have faith in you getting it done against the New Orleans Saints, who just shut down Derrick Henry and company. No way. Miles Sanders, he'll be ranked in like the top 20 all week long from everybody. No, thank you. I don't want anything to do with this guy this week.
Yeah, I don't blame you there. It's I would like to see Miles Sanders get more involved in the passing game before I'm ready to get him in my lineup this week for sure. For me, it's Najee Harris. Najee Harris looks slow. He just didn't look like he was getting things going. He did not have a great game against San Francisco last week. Obviously, that's a tough defense. They fell behind early. They started passing the ball a ton. But I just don't see his fortunes changing against Cleveland this week. And if I'm looking at some other running backs that you probably haven't, like for me personally, I've got Alexander Madison. Probably going to start him over Najee this week.
Yeah, I'm down for that, and I'm not even a Madison fan. But yeah, Najee is not. We talked a little bit earlier just about this Pittsburgh offense in general. I think I know I still like it. They're not going to be phenomenal, but I like it. I think they're going to have some good weeks. I don't know about the run game against Cleveland though, so it makes sense to me to start a Najee Harris.
Yeah.
What about this breakout wide receiver that you got on here?
Yeah, so
he had a great game last week.
Rashid Shaheed for the New Orleans Saints had himself a really solid game. I know I talked about him briefly when I was talking about Derek Carr. I just don't see him rising above the productions of Chris Olave and Michael Thomas this week. They're playing the Carolina Panthers, so there is potential for them to put up some big points, and I think they probably will. But if I'm looking at those top 2 guys, I see them getting most of the production early, and then they're probably going to peel off and go more towards the run if this turns into a blowout. I don't think most people are starting Shaheed anywhere except for in the flex play, really. I mean, realistically, you're not going to put him as your wide receiver 2, right? But I just think there's so many other options. Even if you're desperate for a play here, I wouldn't look to him.
Yeah. There's you should have plenty of options out there. Really, a lot of waiver wire options this week. It felt like, which was good. It's also one of the reasons I kind of laid low on the waiver wire. I didn't throw a bunch of fab out there. I
was
put in some
actually
claims,
in
but
the same boat as you on that. I didn't put in a ton of claims
it just felt
for
like there
many
was
of these
so many
players.
options that like, dude, these guys aren't all gonna hit. Like
Well,
Puka, I'm down for
yeah.
Puka. 15 targets, a rookie. Yeah, I'm down for that. But there's a lot of these guys, and I'm like, man,
Mhm.
yes, look good, but
Well, I was here for the guys that were getting dropped.
yeah.
Like, for every player that's getting picked up, there's someone you can pick up yourself after that second wave and stash on your bench. So, like, someone dropped Quentin Johnston in one of my
Oh,
leagues, so
no,
I went
no,
and
come
grabbed
on.
him. Yeah.
Maybe I need to do that. Maybe tonight after the show, I'll go through and just check everybody got dropped
Yeah.
because that's a good point. Just go see who got
Come in
dropped
and
out
grab the
there.
seconds,
No
grab
kidding.
the scraps.
People panic too early sometimes, y'all. They panic too
Yeah,
early.
absolutely.
Um,
I mean, there's so many instances where you can come in and grab somebody late. Who was it for me last year? Gosh, I can't even think about it. But like Daryl Henderson was one of those guys for me one year where someone gave up on him after week one. Then Akers goes down. Now you got the Rams' #1 running
yep.
back the rest of the season. So I mean, there's just stuff like that that can happen.
A guy that people are probably feeling a little panicked on because he had one target last week is Drake London. And I think that you're still going to see if you go into rankings and those kind of things this week, Atlanta Falcons playing the Green Bay Packers, and what might be a little bit higher scoring than last week. No, I'm not taking Drake London right now. I'm just going to put him on my bench. I'm not dropping him. But again, we just talked about people dropping guys out of panic.
The
Go check
panic.
it out. But I'm not dropping this guy. You spent way too high of a draft capital on him. You're going to feel like you need to start him because you drafted him in the second, third round. So you feel like you have to start him, but I'm sitting him right now. Put him on your bench for this week. And if he blows up, you're going to feel really good, right? Because now you feel like you got a guy that you drafted and you can move forward with. But I'm okay with letting that happen on my bench because one target, like T. Higgins put up a goose egg last week, and I'm like, oh well, dude, it's fine. It's part of fantasy football.
Still
Drake London
flexing
putting
them.
up one target, like that feels weird. They only threw it like 18 times. I don't know. Like it's and then Arthur Smith, man. What did Arthur Smith come out and say? Like, you I'll let the fantasy guys worry about that or whatever. Like, he doesn't care that he only got one target. Like, I don't know. It just doesn't feel good right now for Drake London after 1 week. So don't panic. Don't get rid of him or anything like that. But I am putting him on my bench. I think that probably the glimmer of hope you have right now is like maybe this game becomes kind of a shootout, or maybe the Packers take a early lead, and so the Falcons can't just run the ball the whole time.
Yeah.
But yeah, Arthur Smith clearly just wants to run the ball and run the ball a lot with both of his running backs, who are both very good. But so
Algier
is
looks
Kyle
great.
Pitts. Kyle Pitts is really good. Drake London's really good. Like,
Yeah.
utilize him, please.
Give him some play, Arthur.
Please.
Yeah, I'm with you there. It just didn't. Desmond Ridder didn't really get a whole lot of opportunities to showcase what he can do as a passer. And there's literally a Twitter video that came out not about Drake London, but about Kyle Pitts and all these routes he ran.
He's open. I saw that
Wide open.
video. Oh my
Wide open. I
goodness.
mean, get this guy the ball. Let's bring tight ends back in a big way.
He's so good. It just feels so wrong that he's on that offense just because the way they underutilize him.
100%.
It sucks. Since we're talking tight ends, I'll go ahead with my sit of the week. I'm going Tyler Higbee against the San Francisco 49ers. We've kind of already laid out, obviously, how high we are on the 49ers defense. I was pretty high on Higbee last week. No Cooper Kupp. Thought all the targets were going to go to Tyler Higbee. That was wrong. They went to Puka and Tutu, and all these names in Los Angeles is just, you got Puka and Tutu and Kupp and Van. And Van. No, the 49ers defense is just too good. I don't expect anything out of Higbee. go ahead and stream tight ends over starting him this week.
Yep. And then my tight end, it was the number one tight end last week, Hayden Hurst. I do not like him against the New Orleans Saints defense. They held Chigakonkwo to a big fat goose egg last week. Hayden Hurst obviously caught that touchdown. That was a big piece as to why he had such a good game from tight end standards. Other than that,
I was literally about to say, but it was only 11 points. It's not like
he had 5 points from his catches and yards after that. So just don't trust it. He's going to be one of those boomer bust touchdown guys, kind of like Jawan Johnson or one of those kind of guys this year. And I don't like it against New Orleans. So
no, neither do I. I was just going to mention just the tight ends just in general. Like, you're still going to just start the guys that you drafted high.
yeah,
Don't go chasing some of these Hayden Hursts. Hunter Henry, maybe you might kind of think about it if you've got a guy. Chig, don't be scared of Chig. Y'all, he put up a goose egg, but Ryan Tannehill flat out missed him. And Chig was wide open, and Tannehill looked bad for one, but I think Chig's still going to have a decent year this year. Goddard or Freiermuth, Lee Goddard, another guy with his big fat zero last week, man.
that was
I think I'm going back to Goddard though this week. Freiermuth should have some more targets this week with Deontay Johnson out and whatnot. But this Minnesota defense is nowhere to be seen. So
no,
I could see this game having some scoring in tomorrow night. So I kind of like that a little bit more than Freiermuth in the against the Cleveland Browns.
100%. I'm with you there. Well, that's our starts and sits, man. I'm hoping we get a good bounce back for starts this week. A lot harder to predict the starts than the sits, I think, but we'll get back above 500 as a show here. Sorry for dragging us down on that one with my 1 and 3. But let's talk high risk, high reward. This was a fun one last week. Both of our guys were literally the epitome of high risk, high reward. And I think this week we picked 2 guys that kind of fit that profile too.
Yeah, absolutely. Last week, both of our guys had plenty of opportunities. I took Cam Akers. You took Sky Moore. Sky Moore, dropping passes, just not getting open. Cam Akers not doing anything with his touches. But they both had that opportunity. That's kind of what we were looking for, right? Who's going to get the opportunities and targets? And I'm going to go straight back to the running back well. I'm going DeAndre Swift, man, against this Minnesota defense tomorrow night. I am not 100% sure how it's going to go. And the quote that came out today, or was it today or yesterday, from Eagles head coach Nick Sirianni, doesn't make me feel great about this, as he says, obviously DeAndre Swift will be in the role sometimes where he carries the load for the game, and he'll be in a role sometimes like he was last game, which means he didn't do jack shit. Rashad Penny, man. Rashad Penny is a healthy scratch last week. I'm feeling good about Swift. I actually late swap into Swift on a couple DFS teams because I'm like, oh, Penny's out. They got to go Swift. It was flipping Kenneth Gainwell that they went to.
Who is out.
But he's out. Week. And that's why I'm going Swift with my high risk, high reward play this week, because Kenneth Gainwell is out. Somebody's got to carry the load in Philadelphia. And Nick Sirianni says he will be in that role sometimes where he carries the load. I'm calling it. That's tomorrow night. He's carrying the load tomorrow night.
Coach said, so we got to trust him there.
That's right. High risk, high reward.
For me this week, high risk, high reward. It's coming back to that Aaron Rodgers injury, and it's Garrett Wilson, man. I don't think there's a wide receiver out there that epitomizes this more this week and really the rest of the season. He's going to be that high risk, high reward play where Zach Wilson's going to be looking at him. It's just a matter of whether or not he's going to be accurate enough to give him a real opportunity to catch the ball. And they're facing a Dallas defense that just dismantled the New York Giants. He's going to be under pressure, But, if they fall behind late in this game, kind of similar to what happened last time, then there's a really good opportunity that he gets a lot of volume late in the game and you can pick up some good cheap junk points from him. But yeah, that's my high risk, high reward play. I'm debating on whether or not I even want to start him in
That's
one
what
of
I
my
was thinking.
10-man
It's so
leagues.
hard. I mean, if you have good depth, you might really think about putting him on the bench because,
So
but you draft him in the first round, like.
maybe that's my question for you too. So here's my 4 receivers on this particular team. Our 5 receivers, we should put it that way. I have AJ Brown, who's going to be starting.
Yep.
T. Higgins, who I'm going to start. And my flex play is the question. So I'm looking at these guys. It's Mike Evans, Garrett Wilson, and Jordan Addison, who are the 3
Man.
that I'm kind of torn between.
Jordan Addison that you talked about just earlier. I mean, on every other week, it's easy Garrett Wilson, right? Like you're just playing Garrett Wilson. That's why you drafted him.
Yeah.
I thought Mike Evans and Baker
great.
looked pretty good last week.
Yeah.
I was just looking. Oh, yeah, the Bears. Mike Evans, 6 for 66 and a touchdown last week, drops a touchdown. Like he had a slant route.
That's true.
I had Mike Evans. I think he was on the same Tua Hill with Eckler comeback. And I was so mad when he dropped that slant because I was like, oh, that's perfect. He's scoring, drops it. But he's a touchdown machine. I probably, like, again, Garrett Wilson's so hard not to start because you spent such high draft capital on him. Well, I mean, I assume that's the league you kept him in. But on most occasions, you spent really high draft capital on him. But I think that I would seriously consider starting Mike Evans. I wouldn't go Addison quite yet, just because I think there's still kind of, KJ Osborne was still involved last week, but Mike Evans is somebody I would definitely consider starting over Garrett Wilson this week.
Yeah. So right now I do have Mike Evans in the flex play, so I'm with you on that. So really that was just you solidified it for me a little bit there.
That's the way I would go. Let's get on high risk, high reward. I love that segment. Like just thinking through those kind of guys.
So much fun.
Garrett Wilson could absolutely catch 2 touchdowns, right? Like, cause he is going to be the main guy Zach Wilson looks to throw to. So that's why he is a high risk, high reward type of play. Let's do some streamers. We killed it last week in streams of the week. Our quarterbacks hit, our defenses hit. Like we did really well with our streams of the week.
Love it. Both a reminder, top 8 defenses.
Oh yeah, looked good too. Looked good. As a reminder, these are guys that are not highly rostered in your leagues, and guys that you can go and jump on. Say you had Aaron Rodgers and now you need a quarterback for this week, or maybe you have Kenny Pickett and you're not quite, feeling great about him after last week. Whatever the case may be, you're looking to stream a quarterback this week. We've got a couple guys here that we believe in for this week. Again, it's like a week-by-week basis here. And I'll go first this time, if I may. I'm going to go with Jordan Love, the Green Bay Packers against Atlanta Falcons. If Christian Watson comes back, I'm really loving this.
Oh, yeah.
This pick, right? Obviously. But Jordan Love, 15 of 27, 245 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns. A really great start to Love's career there in Green Bay. Packers just continue to churn out quarterback after quarterback. Let's not crown him MVP quite yet, but
not yet.
Still a really good game to come out of the gate. And this Green Bay Atlanta game doesn't have like this mouthwatering total. Right now it's sitting at 40.5, which usually is weird, but there's 6 or 7 games that are under 40 points this week. So not a lot of high totals around the league. And the ones that are high totals are guys who you're not going to find on the waiver wire or the free agent block this week. I don't fear this Falcons defense at all. And like I said, you get a Christian Watson back this week. Romeo Doubs looked good. last week. Luke Musgraves was pretty close to being great last week. So
Yeah.
I like Jordan Love. And if you need a streaming quarterback, that's the way I'd go.
No, I love that pick. I think I love that pick. No, I think with Aaron Jones being on the field too, you know, there's a good chance that he stays out there. That's a huge veteran presence for him. A big reason why he saw a lot of that success was Aaron Jones just dicing up their defense. No, I think that's a great play. For me, I'm going Derek Carr against Carolina. He has all those weapons. I think Carolina's defense isn't going to put up as much of a fight as what Tennessee's defense put up against them. He was under pressure quite a bit against them. They couldn't really get their running game going either. I think they're going to be able to accomplish those things against Carolina just the same way Atlanta did in the running game. That's going to complement that passing game quite a bit. So if you're looking for a streaming option, Derek Carr is your man.
Derek Carr, I think he was he my streaming option last week and ended up as a top 12 quarterback. So keep riding the Carr train. The car.
Yeah.
Right.
Keep riding
I don't know.
I'm jumping on that car.
Riding shotgun. There's some kind of punny there somewhere.
We can get punny with it.
I'll go to defense here. I'm going to the Indianapolis Colts. Facing off against the Houston Texans. We said it last week. Just going to target these rookie quarterbacks for the time being. It's pretty easy. The Texans are bad. The Colts defense, not that bad. And there's a league that I went and actually picked up the Colts defense to start over the Philadelphia Eagles defense this week. So you might be in that same situation. I'm not dropping the Eagles defense. Like, I believe in that defense. But for this week and this week only, give me the Colts.
I think that's pretty solid. Obviously, Baltimore had a pretty good game against them too. I'm picking another defense that's going up against a team that didn't do much week 1, and I'm taking the Browns over Cleveland. Or I'm sorry, the Browns over Pittsburgh, rather. They were able to force a lot of pressure on Joe Burrow. Now, I know I mentioned the weather earlier, but I wholeheartedly believe the Steelers' offensive line is not as good as the Bengals' offensive line. And I think there's a lot of potential for them to pressure Kenny Pickett into some turnovers, get some sacks while they're at it. Cam Hayward getting hurt doesn't help that defense a ton. But what does help is they still have a healthy TJ Watt. They still have Alex Highsmith. There's a lot of edge rushers on that defense that are going to get after it. And that's kind of where I'm at with, what am I talking about? I'm talking about Pittsburgh's defense. They have Myles Garrett out there edge rushing against these young tackles for Pittsburgh's offensive line. I'm all over the place here.
I was starting to get confused, but I'm like, I like went back to the sheet, clicking back and forth. I'm like, are we okay?
Cleveland's the defense you want to start. Their offensive line for Pittsburgh, not as good as what the Bengals put out there. So I just see a lot of pressure for Kenny Pickett this week with Cleveland.
Can we just talk about this offensive line for the Bengals? Orlando Brown, baby. I mean, he looked bad. he looked bad. I don't think he is bad. I don't think
he's bad.
He was one of, when he was in Kansas City, he was PFF's like one of the top tackles in run offense, like run blocking the whole season. Like, but his pass blocking was always pretty suspect.
Low.
They were always chipping with McKinnon on the side, throwing an extra tight end on his side. Like, and he looked bad, I thought. So anyways, I just had to.
I mean, he was getting manhandled by Myles Garrett.
I know. Garrett's pretty dang good, right?
I don't know what you're going to do about that. But yeah, I mean, he's just not, he's not the uber athlete tackle,
Yeah.
And what's interesting about Cincinnati is they actually just released La'el Collins from the PUP. So he is now a free agent at right tackle. So I'm curious to see what that means for the rest of that offensive line, because they've invested so much money and draft picks into it. Obviously now they have to pay Joe Burrow. So that changes things a little bit. I mean, that Bengals team, not to get too far off track, but that Bengals team is going to have some tough decisions in the next 2 years.
Yeah, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. Mixon, I assume, will walk, those kind of things. But
Yeah.
let's get into some making a little bit of money here. Let's get into our Thursday night football daily fantasy lineups. We're gonna do this every week. Just focus on the Thursday night game, putting in a showdown lineup. Last week, Dan, I put mine in to FanDuel contest. I got 57th out of 100. Not what I was looking for. But I think we both kind of play a little similarly. Like it's definitely, I'm trying to play a contrarian style of play because when it does hit, nobody else is going to have them. Nobody else is duplicating the lineup. That's why I'm playing it like that, so I can try to win all the money at the top. How did you play your lineup last week, or
I did
did
not
you
play
see
it
how it
last
went?
week, but this week I made sure to play it. I know I
Got
said
it
it last
in.
week and then I just didn't. It was Chiefs game day. I just didn't hit submit
That's
before
right.
I
That's
made it
true.
out to the tailgates. The
That's
problem
true.
there.
That's true. Well, why don't you kick it off with your DraftKings showdown lineup?
Yes, sir. DraftKings is the app that I roll with on my daily fantasy. So I'm going with for Thursday night. I'm putting in the captaincy, Captain Kirk Cousins at 13.8K for that particular player. I just feel like my lineup tonight's going to be very Vikings heavy. I just feel like a lot of teams, you mentioned this already, play the contrarian a little bit. Feel like a lot of people are going to be putting up lineups with a lot of Eagles players, probably putting, the top three players in this game in that spot. And that's AJ Brown, Jalen Hurts, and Justin Jefferson likely. I'm going Kirk Cousins here because if he's feeding Jefferson and Addison like I think he will with the Eagles being down a corner, then it's going to be a nice play that's going to offset a little bit of what other people are doing for their lineups. AJ Brown, got to have him in there, got to take the premier Eagles offensive player from a skill position standpoint. Alexander Madison, plugging him in there. He had a pretty decent game last week, and the Eagles actually were like bottom 10 against the run last week. So I like his potential there. TJ Hawkinson's going to get fed. Jordan Addison's going to get fed. So anything Kirk Cousins does outside of Justin Jefferson is all going to get funneled into my lineup here. And then finally with the high risk, high reward play in DeAndre Swift. So altogether, this left me with about $800 extra. AJ Brown was 10.6, Madison 7.6, Hawkinson 6.8, Addison 6.4, and then an even 4K for DeAndre Swift. So rolling with a lineup that I feel pretty good about. I mean, this is a lucky Thursday night matchup where we got two teams that have a lot of great fantasy players in it. So it makes it a little bit more difficult, but also easier at the same time, if that makes sense. Like, that these guys are going to put up numbers as a whole, but it's also like, which ones am I going to pick that are going to really set me apart from everyone else?
Yeah, and how do you get a little bit different, right? So putting
Right.
a guy like Kirk Cousins in the captain spot, I assume tomorrow night it's going to be a lot of Jalen Hurts, a lot of AJ Brown, probably a lot of Justin Jefferson, those type of players in the captain spot over on DraftKings. On FanDuel, you don't see as many non-quarterbacks on the MVP spot as I kind of talked about last week because you don't have to pay the extra, 1.5 times the salary. And so usually the quarterbacks just kind of reign, especially when you get a running quarterback like a Jalen Hurts. I assume he'll be 60, 70% MVP in most lineups. Therefore, I'm not going to go that way. I'm going to go Justin Jefferson in my MVP spot. Kirk Cousins, Jordan Addison. That'll be kind of my double stack for the Vikings there. And I'm going to go the same DeAndre Swift, that high risk, high reward type of play. And then I'm going to go Jake Elliott, kind of just playing in a look. The Eagles are going to run all over the Vikings, score a bunch of points through the ground, whether it's DeAndre Swift or Rashad Penny maybe comes back in, whatnot. But you're not going to get enough out of the A.J. Browns and Jalen Hurts of the world. And then everything goes through Cousins and Justin Jefferson on the Vikings side. So that's kind of the story I'm telling myself there for tomorrow night. I'll throw this thing into one of my $100 person contests and see how that goes. Anything else, Dan? Anything for the people? Any last start sits that you can think of? I think that we hit everything from the chat tonight.
Yeah, man. I'm just ready for some redemption. I think across the board, didn't have as good of a week as I would have liked. My out of my 3 key leagues, I only got 1 win, so I'm looking to get back to 500 in a lot of ways. And yeah, I mean that's my focus for the week. What do you think?
Well, you got Nate and ADP. So I handled Nate pretty well last week. Hopefully you can handle Nate this week. We like our boy Nate, but we're trying to take him down, right? We can be friends while
Right.
also trying to kick each other's butts this week.
As soon
I've
as that
got
Thursday
Reed.
night game starts up, don't
That's
talk to
right.
me.
That's right. I've got Reed. I've got a quarterback problem in Daniel Jones. So I'm trying to figure that out as I go this week. And I'm just grateful for a New York Jets punt return because I was opposing Steph Diggs in two fantasy leagues. They were within 2 or 3 points in both of them. He drops they miss the pass on third down. I'm like, thank God. Let's let the Jets win this thing. He takes it back to the house. I rejoice. 2 wins and 1 shot. So
Love it.
good first week for me, and we'll see how week 2 goes. I would just say one last parting thing is just be patient, y'all. Like don't panic too much on your studs. You put too much draft capital on them to absolutely panic. Don't be dropping those guys, but take Dan's advice. Go look at the guys that were dropped. I think that's really, really sharp advice that Dan dropped earlier. Follow me on Twitter at TrevorS_FF. My Friday night show, I almost took it down. I got second place in a 1,100 person DFS contest this week. Actually had some heartbreak. The lineup I had would have won me $400 in a different contest I was in. So that kind of sucked. Instead, I won like $70. Like, what the hell is going on here?
Oh man.
Come join the show Friday nights, 8:15, the Rumbles of Red, talking through FanDuel and working through some lineup builds and those kind of things. And obviously a lot changes from Friday night to Sunday morning, but just gives us a good starting point there every Friday, 8:15. And check out all the stuff we got going on Bite Size Sports. We said earlier, Keeb's going to start a betting podcast, I think, on Monday nights. We've got the Bite Size NFL podcast rolling. Those have been pretty popular on YouTube. They're like 20 minutes long, so nice and short, but packed full of content for your favorite team. So make sure you check those out on the Bite Size Sports YouTube network. And, of course, hit that subscribe button.
Heck yeah. Got to follow those guys up. Make sure you follow me on Twitter as well at Dan_TF40. You can find me on IG there as well. Give our show a follow at ADP podcast_FF, where we're shooting out all the links for the shows, those start and sits, and just kind of some recaps to get you prepared for Sundays. I think that's all we got. Like, subscribe, share the show, get your friends involved. The more we build this community out, the funner it's going to be as we get this season going. So we appreciate all of you guys.
Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but I like it's new what you're telling me. I'm curious, George. I hop in the Porsche, it's 5 and a horse. I'm ready for war. I'm coming for throats to turn to a ghost. I need to know everything. Now you be surprised at the info you get is by letting them talk. So I'm